This is a lesson in natural lighting. This is Sophie's model that I just opened, and we're going to turn on shadows and use sunlight as a source of natural light. So we will need a useful point of view to do this work, but for now let's just quickly turn on shadows in this default view that I opened up, and I'm going to change this point of view's visibility properties to just hide things that we don't need to look at. Maybe I'll turn shadows off until I do that. First off, let's change the camera to parallel. Whenever we're measuring or setting something up with trying to achieve some degree of precision, you want to switch camera to parallel mode so we don't introduce any perspective distortion. As a model, let's look at the layers. Okay, one thing that should have been done in advance is those layers collapse, but let's see. These are the ones that were with the AutoCAD file, so I'm going to take them and move their contents, delete them and move the contents to the default layer. Turn off guides, visibility of guides. It doesn't appear that, do we have a roof? Yes, there's a roof here. Okay, wonderful, good. So from this point of view, furniture's on, the girder, and trusses. So with everything on, I'm going to save this as a scene. Let me make sure that, yeah, let's add a scene, save as a new style. Make sure everything's being updated. Let's rename it isometric, all layers on or visible. If we haven't done so, let's look at the size of the model. It's fairly big, so we may want to purge components that are not in use. So you click to look at components in model, and then in model Okay, it doesn't look like anything is not used. And I'm going to save this out. In this case, I'm going to go to my handouts where I'm returning the Saturday. Workshop files in this folder. Maybe I'll rename it Saturday. That's generally where, and then let's put Sophie's name on this. And I typically use the suffix of post. That means I've done something with it post-production, if you will. Okay, plan. Let's look at the top view. So the first thing we want to understand is where the sun is coming from. Now, if north is straight up and down, there's a plug-in SketchUp has called Solar North, and it allows me to set where north is. Let me, before I do this, I'm going to turn shadows on and show you how that works. Okay. Set north. If north is straight up and down, at 1:30 p.m., it's taking a minute to generate the shadow. This is the shadow that it's going to cast because the sun is coming. The sun comes from the south, and noontime it's almost straight back. Then it starts to move to the west, so it's casting a shadow toward the east. If we change the time of day, I'm just going to click to set north to that point, indeed, straight up and down, and demonstrate here that at 12 p.m. we get almost a perfectly north cast shadow. I could save. I recommend that you save scenes as you go incrementally so that you can get back to where you were working. I'm going to rename that scene. Site view 12 p.m. So we know that all layers are on there. And we have that condition. So I need to set up a perspective. For now, I'm going to try quick and dirty, cut a section through the building and point from one direction to another, place a camera at some point in the building here, and then look toward some windows. If I look toward these windows, I should have morning light, right? Because in the morning the sun will rise. Think of it like this. About 6 a.m. it comes from here. About 8 a.m. it does this. About 12 p.m. it does this. It's following that line. Then it goes to the west. 2 p.m., 3, 4 p.m. where it's at its hottest. It's important to know. So let's turn section cuts and section planes back on. And I'm going to turn shadows off, which slow the performance down. I'm going to save out this view also. So I want a section that's below all the architecture, the trusses and the beams above. So I'm going to place a section plane on the ground. Okay, everything disappears naturally because all the geometry in this model is above the ground. And I'm going to raise this into the air, say 12 feet. Well, let's see what it reveals. I don't want to be through that stuff. I suppose I don't mind if I see that girder. Let's see what 12 feet generates. It's not bad. That heavy line work is because the section fill is on. I'm going to turn that off. The performance of this is pretty slow right now. You may want to consider some less complex objects, furnishings, accessories, whatever it is that might be in the model view. Let's turn off section fill, and let's turn off section planes, and let's add a scene, create a new style, and I'm going to call this my placement scene. Sometimes you have to close some of these panels in order to get that rename window. Placement scene. How about camera placement? Camera placement scene. Okay, and then I'm going to save this file again, because you never know what will happen. Now that that file is saved, remember that the section is always going to be cut. That section cut is at 12 feet. Anything above that, any geometry, any part of the model above 12 feet will not be visible, including when you're trying to place a camera. You have to keep that in mind, that you can't see past that, at least not while the section plane is active. So camera, position camera, And I like using what I call the tripod method, if you will. Select something of a known height. Oh, I guess I'm up in the loft. Whoops. Alright, we won't panic. We're gonna do something clever. I'm gonna drag from the end of this chair, which might be a little around 4 feet or so in height, and watch. Now I'm dragging in the direction of that window. So that's a straight line. I'm probably going to get a very a single point perspective, so kind of a Stanley Kubrick point of view. You got to change your camera to perspective, and then it's giving you what you can see from that point. For purposes of this lesson, I'm not going to mess around with it. I just want a view where some windows have access to, we have access to sunlight. So I'm looking that way from the end of that camera. This is telling me my eye height is about 51 inches, which is what we thought. Let's save this view and save this model again. Save this as a scene. Perspective. Let's use a prefix camera so you can find these together. Camera perspective 1. Okay, there are no shadows and any of yet. So remember that the section cut is still active. So if I were to take, because I saved this scene, I can go right back to it. But if I were to say rotate this model, I'm still open to the sky. Let me go back to my camera perspective 1. And what I'm going to do is uncheck view section cuts and update that scene. Everything associated with it. New style. Let's use our 12 p.m. shadow and see what that does for us. What do you think it's going to do? This is going to, the light is from behind. Is that right? No. This is the north side. The light is way over on the left somewhere. Let's try 8 a.m. Sometimes we need to play with these settings. let me pause this.